Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and welcome today. This is going to be a very interesting case. It's the Fatal Attraction case, and we all know the movie was Glenn Close, right? And how she became obsessed with a married man, and then she went after him, and horrible things happened, including something with little bunnies. So this case was labeled the Fatal Attraction case because I think it was only a couple years later that this case occurred. And so fresh in everybody's mind from the movies, the papers went absolutely nuts about it. So let me first of all welcome everybody here. We have a full chat room today. And before I just go there, also I have you so well trained. Carolina says you can see and hear me. Great. Your sound and picture is perfect. Well, we're only lucky, Benny, because right before the show, I was having horrible connection issues, and I couldn't connect a link into the internet. It was a big fat mess. So actually, it hasn't been easy, which is why I just barely made it in time here. But I'm here, and I'm glad I'm here. And I'm glad you can hear me. And for all my folks in the chat room, and for all the people watching who say, "Why am I not in the chat room if this is a live show?" Please let me do what I call the needful, because the channel does need some support. Patreon, if you join Patreon, it's $5 a month. It's only one tier. You get to come to 8 different live shows and be in the chat room and hang out and participate in the shows. If you don't want to do that, please just subscribe to the channel, because you're going to see everything that I put out. Nothing is hidden. I don't have, secret videos or anything. The only thing that's different is you can participate in the live stuff. But if you subscribe, well, you can see everything. Hey, if you don't subscribe, you see everything, but be nice, Also, click the bell for notifications. Check my playlist for cases. And you can also do a one-time donation to support this small channel. So there's a $signy thing down there. Click that. And it's very well appreciated. Buy one of my books. Okay, that's that. Let me see who's in the chat room before I start with the actual show, because there's a lot of people here. Oh my goodness. I'm going to go back up. Sour Crime is here. Benny is here. Lisa N is here. Lisa says, "Benny, was this one of your suggestions?" No, it actually wasn't. Sometimes I have multiple suggestions. People, more than one person says, "Hey, can you do this show?" But actually, I'm not exactly sure. Oh, I think is it Netflix that came out with this? Well, recently there's a show on this case. So consequently, just came out, and I watched it. I watched it on Amazon Prime. I'll show you all the things I watched before I made my determinations here. But so I just heard about it, and so that's why I'm commenting on it. Carolina's here. Carrie is here. Let's see. Anne is here. Martin is here. And so we got our UK and Denmark represented here. I'm not going to get into who's guilty and not guilty yet. And Florence is here. Joe is here. I might have missed. Kurt is here. Yay, Kurt, you're back. Because Kurt has been supporting my channel, but he hasn't made it to too many of the shows. But I'm glad you're here, Kurt. So, okay. So now let's get to, Beth is here too. And Beth is also newer to the channel as far as a patron, being a patron and being in the chat room. So I'm excited because we have great people here, and we have no bots, and we have no haters. So this is why I have patron-only chat. Anyway, okay, let's go to this case. Before I start, I want to talk about the 2 things I'm going to talk about. Remember, this is a profiling channel. This is not just a true crime channel. This is a teaching channel. So I'm going to talk about 2 important things as far as analyzing cases go. One is who would commit this kind of crime, of course. And was it one person? Was it two persons? Who was it? Who would do this? And so I'm going to talk about that. And I'm also going to talk about circumstantial evidence, because this is about one of the most circumstantial cases I've ever seen. And this is why, even though this woman has spent, I think, 27 years in prison and is now out of prison, she's still fighting to prove her innocence, because she says it was an entirely circumstantial case. I was framed there's just nothing that proves that I did this. So it is a fascinating case for that reason. So I'm going to go through, first of all, the personalities in this case, and then how all this plays out. And should this case have been decided with just circumstantial evidence? Because there really literally was no connection, physical connection of Carolyn to the actual crime scene or to the weapon. So it is fascinating. All right. So now let me go and see if I can just sort of tell you who the players are in this if you've never heard of this case. And I do an abbreviated version of this. So, because I'm not a true crime channel. So the abbreviated version is going to be this. All right. Oh, before I start, I want to tell you what I accessed. All right. This is the one. I think this was done in 2022. This is what was brought to my attention. The Fatal Attraction Murder. It's a 3-part series. It's 3 episodes. I thought it was very good. I got it on Prime Video, and yes, I had to pay for it. Amazon Prime, and yeah, I paid. It wasn't horrible, but it's three episodes, and I paid. All right. You could also look at. This is very good. This is a CNN special report. 41 minutes. That's free on YouTube. I'm going to put the links below. This is very interesting because it kind of rounds out what the other one said, and it's free in case you don't want to pay. All right. Now, this is cool. This is a prison interview where Carolyn Warmus discusses the case. And this is really good because it'll give you a real feel for who she is and how she presents herself. And how she presents herself is the really fascinating part of this case. And then, so this actually, there's a bunch of them, but this particular movie, it's called, this one's A Murderous Affair. It's got Virginia Madsen playing the part of Carolyn, and she's hot as heck if you're somebody who wants to be interested in looking at a very attractive woman and thinking, why would this married man fall for her? This is a good movie to prove that. And then there's another movie, and this is important because this is called The Danger of Love. And this was the movie, I believe, that got the husband, after he got offers from, of course, media, and he got paid to tell his story. And the husband, in case you don't know, his name is Paul Solomon. Now, and that is an interesting point about, hey, what kind of man after his wife gets murdered makes money off of her from media, And both of these movies, I just want to point out, they make him look really good. I mean, he's a consultant on the films, so he's like, yeah, don't do that. Do this, make me look this way. So he comes off really, really well, as he would if he's being paid to do so. So it's kind of fascinating that, when you have theoretically at one time he was a murder suspect, now he's now consultant to the film and sold his story. So interesting stuff. And but people do that not necessarily because they're guilty or horrible people, but sometimes just because the money's just too hard to resist, and they offered it, so you took it. So anyway, all right. So now let me just give you you watched that. Benny says, I watched A Murderous Affair because of Virginia Madsen. She is 1/4 Danish, so she's pretty. She's really pretty. I'm telling you, she's pretty. I wasn't familiar with her, but I'm watching it going, if I were Paul Solomon, yeah, I might go for her. She's attractive. All right, so let me just give you the Wikipedia version, just so in case you have no clue what the heck I'm talking about. I'm going to give you the Wikipedia version, and then I'll go into more detail. Carolyn Warmus, and that would be her at the time. She was born in 1964, is an American former elementary school teacher who was convicted at age 28 of the 1989 murder of her lover's wife, the married man, Paul Solomon. She was 40-year-old Betty Jeanne Solomon. After a hung jury at her first trial in 1991, and hung jury because, again, we're talking about most circumstantial case. So for a jury to try to even understand this. It's pretty tough. So after the first hung jury, she was convicted of second-degree murder and illegal possession of a firearm at her second trial in 1992. And I believe, was it you, Benny, who asked me why would she have gotten second degree instead of first degree? Because clearly this was a premeditated homicide. And I have to wonder about that too. It was definitely premeditated. Whoever killed her planned this whole thing. This wasn't we got in an argument and I hit her on the head with a poker from the fireplace. I showed up with a gun at the woman's house and emptied the whole gun into her. That's called premeditated. Okay, so second degree. Why? I'm going to say possibly, because I really don't know. They thought the jury might go for that and feel better about, the convict her rather than go with first degree. That's just my guess on that. She served 27 years for the murder and was released from prison on parole in June of 2019. All right. And then it says there, let's see here. She is now trying to go for DNA on the glove issue. Where's my glove? Where's my cute glove? Oh, here it is. I put this in my, it was funny because, and this is something I want to talk about as to why pieces of clothing can end up in certain places. And I'm not going to consider this an absolute piece of proof in this crime at all, the black glove. And the reason is this. There was a black glove found at the crime scene that got misplaced by the police and then was refound by the husband. It's a weird story. And so the question is, was this the glove left by the killer, or is this not even connected to the scene? So I wanted to do I wanted to do my little thumbnail, and I thought this would be a cute thumbnail. But it's now June, and it's swelteringly hot outside. So in theory, all my winter clothing should have been packed up and put away in the trailer that I have outside, for winter stuff. But apparently I found it on the bench right by my front door. So I'm a kind of a slob. So, if you found this today, you'd wonder, why does Pat Brown have a winter glove in her hallway? Because I'm careless and I obviously didn't pay any attention and I threw it there and I never did anything about it. So there you go. So wait a minute, what? But is she Amber Heard pretty? I think she's prettier than Amber Heard, and maybe not as horrible a human being. All right, so I'm going to get to the glove thing later, but so she's asking for DNA testing on the glove, which is kind of interesting because theoretically the concept is if there's DNA from somebody who is not her, then she didn't commit the crime. But the glove is not necessarily anything to do with the crime. So the DNA could be, it could be if it's hers. Be interesting. But the glove it's been around. So who knows what DNA could be on it? But I personally am thinking this is probably not going to be happening and have any great proof. But anyway, she's hoping for that. The murder case attracted national media attention and led to comparisons with the 1987 film Fatal Attraction, about a love affair that turned deadly. The Warmus case went on to inspire made-for-TV movies, 6 different ones. Okay, so husband made a lot of money off of that. All right, so now, oh man, I told you I just got back from the pool, and it is hot. Whew. Where's my fan? Oh, there's my fan. Thank you, Ann, again. It is really hot in here. Okay. It says Canada. Anyway, all right. So now let's find out what happened with this cup. the bunny boiler. Yes. Oh my God. And I had, my family's had a lot of bunnies, so it hits me here. So anyway, so now let's go to what happened on. Do I want to go to the people first, or do I want to go to the? Okay, let me just tell you what happened in the basic crime here. Gretchen's here. Hi, Gretchen. Okay, let me tell you what basically happened in the crime scene. So what happened was, she was a teacher. He was a teacher. And he was married, she was not, and they hooked up and started having an affair. A very, 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 I don't know, a very exciting affair, shall we say. She would write notes to him, leave them on his car, send him presents, and she knew he was married. And when she found that out, and she explains it like this: that he explained that he had an open marriage, and that's why it was okay for him to be messing with her. And apparently, she actually visited his home when his wife was there and had dinner with the family, and also gave presents to the daughter, the teenage daughter, and took the teenage daughter on a ski trip. And this was all hunky-dory. But you know what I find interesting is he claims it's an open marriage, and she supposedly thinks it's an open marriage. But apparently the wife knows nothing about what's going on between the two of them, because nothing's actually discussed. It's not like, oh, yeah, you're the hot babe my husband's having sex with, right? It's just, it's all under the radar, you see. So how much anybody actually knew is questionable. Turns out that the wife, Betty Jeanne, the victim, actually was having an affair herself with her boss. So, I mean, apparently their marriage wasn't real good as far as things go. But they were still living together. He was apparently not leaving her, but he was having this very exciting affair with this much, much younger woman. And she kind of pressed him apparently for, hey, where's this going to in the future? And he was like, really, I'm staying with my wife. But she claims that he told her when the daughter left home, reached 18, off to college, that he might call it quits with the wife and then hook up with her, which will be 3 or 4 years later. And that's a lot of patience, and apparently she didn't have that. But anyway, but they were still seeing each other. So one day, on a cold day, let me go to the crime scene exactly. Where is it in here? Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. All right. It was January 15th, 1969. And the only reason that's really important that it's January is the glove issue, because it's cold out there. This is in New York. I mean, we're not talking Hawaii here. We're talking New York. So we're talking winter clothes and likely gloves. So that a glove would be found at the scene makes sense. And why it might be found at the scene might be that it fell out of a pocket. And one reason it might fall out of a pocket is because if you're firing a gun, I'm going to say, this adds thickness, and it's really hard to hold on to a gun with gloves. I'm not saying some people can't do it, but we're talking about if she committed the crime, she's kind of new to guns. So, and this is a small gun too. So to have gloves on would be really tough, but that you would wear gloves to arrive at the home, that's possible. And then you would have to take, oh, hi there. You take your glove off, and then you pull out the gun, and your glove falls right near the body. Okay. I'm going to say chances that glove had something to do with this, I'm going to say is very possible. And the fact that later on they did find that she had bought gloves that were exactly the kind of glove that was found at the scene. Interesting. Okay. So anyway, so over there at the house, is that what they were looking? Is this the house? Okay. Wait a minute. I think that's okay. I don't know what crappy picture this is, but all right, this is the house. Oh, let me show you a picture of the, this is Betty Jeanne, that's the wife, and this is Kristen, the teenage daughter. And then, so somewhere over at that house, what happened that day was, which I find interesting again. So this is what Paul Solomon says, that he woke up in the morning and he had sex with his wife. And I always find it interesting that a lot of times when a crime is about to go down, somebody has sex with somebody. Like, I really love her, so we made love, not just she laid there and I had sex with her, but we made love, which shows at least the police that there's a good relationship. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm going to talk about the possibilities of who could be involved in the crime, and that could make a difference. But anyway, he had sex with his wife, and that's absolutely true because there was proof of that. All right, so then the day went on, and what happened was somewhere toward evening, he hooked up his car to something. He was like charging his battery through a window and had some electrical thing going on, so he couldn't take his car. And there was this whatever connection thing going out to his car through the window, which was interesting because some would claim that that was a signal, that, hey, she's home now. And I'm not using my car, so I'm taking her car, which was true because he took her car, which meant she couldn't leave the house. She was stuck in the house while he took the car. Apparently, he told her he was going bowling with his buddies, with the other school people at this. Oh, that's a terrible picture. Anyway, that's Brunswick bowling lanes. He went there and showed up, but apparently he did not stay. He only was there for a very short period of time. And then his plan was to meet his girlfriend. And so then she did show up later at the Holiday Inn. There's a bar there. And they didn't get a room there. They just went to the bar and they drank and talked and had a dinner. And then they went out to her car where they had sexual relations. Anyway, so they're not saying exactly what, but that's what it clearly is to me. Anyway, and then he goes home and he arrives home and he finds his wife dead on the floor. And she's face down. And so first he walks in and it's kind of, the TV's loud and he walks in and he's like, what's she doing on the floor? Thinking, like maybe she laid down and went to sleep. But then as he got close, he became concerned, turned her over, blood everywhere, called 911. He said, I just got home, which some people wonder about the old, I just got home, because sometimes when you say that, the first thing is most important. And why do they need to know you just got home? Is it because you want to prove that you were not home at the time she got murdered? Interesting. But anyway, so I just got home. My wife's on the floor. She's bleeding. Help, help. Okay. So I paraphrased that. So anyway, they come out. She's been shot 9 times. So no help for her. She's dead. So anyway, one of the things the police notice as they come in the front door, there's not a broken lock. It's clearly whoever went in the house, she let in the house. And oftentimes, when I talk about this, that people will say it was somebody they knew because there's no sign of breaking and entering. And I say it's not always true that they know the person. Somebody can simply knock and you say, what? You open the door to them because you want to know who they are. And then they say, hey, and they punch you in the face. It could be you thought a utility person was coming. It could be because you expected your friend and that wasn't your friend. It could be, oh, my husband forgot something, so he's knocking at the front door. It could be anything, But clearly what happened was after she let them in, she was not attacked in the hallway. So that does give you an indication that the person got all the way back to the living room area. Oops, I didn't want to show that picture because it has a little bit of crime scene stuff. I'm trying to avoid that with YouTube so I don't get demonetized. So anyway, she let the person all the way into the living room, which indicates then, especially at that time of night, there was probably someone she knew. And then what was interesting was that the husband, here we have police question Paul Solomon after the murder of his wife, Betty Jeanne. So he was the last person to see her. He was the person to find her. So they're thinking he killed her and then he went off to the bowling alley, right? But then they found out there was a phone call at 7:15. He had already left the house. At 7:15, Betty Jeanne actually made a phone call and to 911. And she's like, killing me. Somebody's killing her. And they later couldn't say whether the woman said he's killing me or she's killing me, because of course she's shrieking. And there's no video, there's no audio of this. So it's like, she's killing me. He's killing me. And so the lady says, I don't know whether he or she, which was unfortunate. But it's very interesting. That phone call was made. So Betty Jeanne, she was hit in the head. So there was blunt trauma to her head. She was shot in the arm. If you look on the left side, see those shots to the arm. She was shot in the legs. And then she was shot, if you look over to the right side, supposedly 3 times in the back, although these are the worst autopsy photos. I can't read any of them. I don't know what this crap is. So can't read it. So it's hard to tell exactly how things played out. I looked for the exit and entrance wounds. Very confusing. So at some point, clearly she went for the telephone. And by the time she got to the telephone, she says, killing me. So the person knew what was happening. And so the gun was obviously out at that time. Maybe she had already been shot. So she knew she was being killed. And then I believe that's when the blunt force trauma happened. I don't believe it happened before the phone call. I believe that was when she was on the phone, the person whacked her to keep her from, continuing the conversation, and then finished shooting her. And then when she went down on her face, the person stood over her and emptied the rest of the magazine. The gun that it turned out to be could hold 8 in the magazine and 1 other. And so she or he emptied the entire gun into Betty Jeanne. And somebody said, why would they do that? Well, because might as well, make sure they're dead. I want to point out that having looked at the way she was shot, this is not a professional hit. This is somebody who's not really good with a gun. And later on, she says that Paul had experience in the military. Well, if he had experience in the military, he could do a better job than the crap that I saw. That looks like it's all over the place, because normally you'd go for center, you'd go for mass, take care of them. Or if you're close enough, you can shoot them in the head. But she wasn't shot in the head. She really wasn't shot in the chest. She was hit in the arm, the legs. I mean, whoever did this wasn't really that good. So I'm going to get rid of a professional hit or anybody who had any great skill with a gun. All right. So they of course, they did think it could be him. But then when they got the 911 call, they're like, oh, wait a minute. He was kind of like at the bowling alley. And then they tried to test whether he could get from the bowling alley back home and then back out again. And it was hard to make that work. So he was their first suspect, as he should have been. But then time went on and they got more information that started linking everything to her. And they found out about her that she was this side thing for Paul, and that she was very obsessive. And then they started looking at her. Okay, so it's a fascinating case in all of the. So right now, nothing puts her at the location. The glove was never proven to be hers. It was like a glove that belonged to her. They did prove that, like a glove. So there's another circumstantial evidence, but this isn't proven to be the glove the killer wore. And because Betty Jeanne was kind of sloppy, it could have been something she had put thrown some glove there and it fell off the couch on the floor. And it may have nothing to do with the crime. Yes, she did buy gloves just like this. But that's not proof. That's interesting, but it's not proof. So now let me tell you a little bit about why they became interested in Carolyn. All right. So before I get there, I'll just check her comments out. Let's see. Oh, I get people to open the door all the time. The guy I served a 5-day eviction notice to this morning will vouch for that. There you go. It is true. I mean, I do it myself. I'm a terrible criminal profile when it comes to that. I have a problem not opening doors. So, who's out there? Oh, it's 2 a.m. Hi, I'm an idiot. I confess. All right. So who is this woman? All right. Now, I want to explain something I thought was really interesting to me. So I watched all these different shows with her. Okay. And she is very, she comes across extremely well. Let me show you a picture of the way she looked before she had her brain tumor, because I mean, she did end up with a brain tumor. Wait a minute. Here's the way she looked earlier, without the brain tumor thing going on. Okay. There she is. She was actually, we're talking some 25 years later. So she's hitting 50s now, right? But she actually she has a very nice personality. She does. And they're talking to her, and she's very forthcoming, very open. And this takes you off your guard. When people are really open, for example, she would say something like, well, I got to admit, I was promiscuous at the time. It was that time of, that decade. And I was a young woman, and, I was I was promiscuous. Now, when somebody is willing to admit that, that makes you think, wow, they're not a liar. Because normally you think, I'm going to cover that crap up. I'm not going to say, yeah, I screwed a lot of men. You don't want to admit that. So you go, no, I know. I've had 8 boyfriends. And then I met Paul. No, she didn't say that. She was actually very open. No, I was kind of promiscuous. And she smiles a lot. She's got a very nice smile. She's very soft spoken. She's very innocent sounding. She's almost girlish. She's always girlish. And I'm like, oh, and so it was working for me. So I'm watching that. And then I watched her, and this is after she had the brain tumor. And you can see she's got a problem with her. See, her face is off on the left side now, and her eye's wonky. And so she doesn't, but even with that going on, where she was like going, talking in like this, even with that, I found her I'm thinking, she seems really nice. I mean, I'm not getting this femme fatale from her. I'm getting kind of like, I kind of went for this guy because he was older than me, and he told me he had an open marriage. So, I went for it. And I'm very expressive. That's why I wrote so many notes. I'm an expressive person. I like to give presents. She comes across really well. So the question here is that who she is, or is that how she acts? And I want to talk to you about malignant narcissism, because I'll tell you my personal story of a person I ran into just like this. I've told this on another show, but this really is so much like her. I just have to tell it again. So anyway, I raised my kids in my house, and I rented rooms to students usually to help pay the rent so I could stay home and homeschool. So I rented to this professor at the University of Maryland. She was a French professor from France. She was actually French. And she was like, an assistant professor. She wasn't up there yet, but she was hooked up with an older man who was the lead professor, so she was going that route. Anyway, she came to live in my house, and she was so sweet, just like her. Oh, she was always childlike. She always needed help. Like, oh my God, there's a spider in my room. Can you help me with the spider in my room? So you always felt kind of like, your heart went out to her, because she wasn't a tough girl. She was like, oh my God, there's a spider. Can you get it for me? And you're like, okay, I'm going to get it for you, and she would talk like this all the time. She was so soft-spoken and just really always smiling, always so nice, But she did a few things which I wondered about. She stole food from me. I had brought home food from a restaurant, and then she had a friend over, and somehow the food from my restaurant ended up on their plates. And she knew it wasn't her food. And then I'm so sorry. I was just, he came over, and I just thought that was available food. And she was still really sweet. And she apologized. I'm so sorry. Okay. So she was like this. And then what happened was, she had asked me if she could plant a garden in my front yard. She wanted a little round garden in my front yard, but she just wanted to have some flowers. So my son went and he got these rocks and, put these rocks around, made a nice circle in the front yard. And then she brought the plants over, and he dug it up for her, and she put the plants in, and she cared for them. And then she said, when she went back to France for a month, she said, can you water the plants for me? And I thought, sure, I'll water them. So I kept her garden alive, and meanwhile, she also loved my cats. She adored my cats, and she adored one of my cats, Rooksy, terribly much. And so one day I went out of town, and she said, well, I'll take care of Rooksy. And she always even brushed his hair and everything. And I said, I'm going to be out of town for like 2 weeks. And I said, by the way, if you have any issues with the cats, you do one of two things. First, you can call me straight away. I have my phone in my hand 24/7. Tell me what's happened. Secondly, if you can't get hold of me, you call my daughter, and she'll take care of things. So I go away, I come back, and when I come back, she brings out the cat, and it's got a little bandage on its paw, and she goes, oh, I just wanted to show you what happened to Rooksy. I'm like, what do you mean what happened to Rooksy? Well, he got in this fight with some cat or something, so I took Rooksy to the vet. And I'm like, Why didn't you call me? Well, I was so worried about him. I just raced to the vet. So she didn't do what I asked her to do. She skipped 2 steps, myself and my daughter. $300 bill. I would have put some Neosporin on that cat's paw and tossed it back out, but she went there and cost me $300. And then she's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, so I had brought her a little present because I've been out someplace and I brought her a little gift. And I gave her the gift. I said, look, I'm going to pay this, but don't ever do this again. Please do not ever do this again because I don't want to pay this kind of money for something that probably didn't need to be done. Okay. Then she went away. Now I thought I was being extraordinarily kind. I paid the stupid bill and gave her a present. But she did not like that I did not thank her for doing what she did. And at that moment, that sweetness changed over in seconds. And then what happened was she stopped. She didn't want to pay the rent. She told the new renter that came in, I was a horrible landlady. She called the town and told them I had a house that needed to be torn down and that no renter should live there. She called the county and said I was abusing my pets and they needed to come out and save my pets. And she ratted me out for my potbelly pig and said, oh, she's not supposed to have it on the property. And I'm like, wow, all because I didn't thank her for spending $300 of my money. So anyway, so I had all this problem. She left. She took the other renter with her. The county came out. They looked around and said, nothing here. The town came out and said, nothing wrong with my house. The county came out and said, nothing wrong with your animals. But she did put my pig in a position because it was a 20-year-old pig and they had changed the laws. So that's a whole nother story about how I fought to save my pig. But here's what happened, which was absolutely amazing. So then some time went by and I left town for like a month, 2 weeks to a month. I can't remember what it was. I came back home. I get up in the morning, I have some coffee. I go out to the front yard. I go sit on my porch and look out into my yard where the little round garden is. Okay. And hold on a second, I'm gonna put my glasses back on here. And I look out and this is the garden. So the garden is gone. She stole the garden. She stole the whole garden. She stole even the rocks from the garden. She stole the plants. She stole the rocks. There was nothing left. It was just gone. So she actually came back to my property when I was out of town and stole the garden. Now, how extreme can you get from absolutely, I'm so sweet and wonderful, to vengeance? That when I don't get what I want, I will stalk you. I will ruin you. I will take vengeance on you, even over the smallest slight. So that was one of my great learning experiences. So when I saw her talking, she's so sweet and so nice. Let me tell you what I also saw. So in the middle of this, the later one, so here she is, and the producer handed her this paper and said, what about this? And she turned from sweet to, well, I guess that's your gotcha moment, huh? She got really nasty really quick. And for that flash, you saw her come out. You saw her other personality. And I don't mean that. Some people say she's DID, dissociative identity disorder, multiple personality. No. You just saw her drop her mask. And the mask, which Harvey Cleckley would call mask of sanity, she dropped that sweet, I'm so innocent and to what she could really be. She dropped it in a heartbeat. And then later on, they asked her this question: are you afraid of what people might think of you, Carolyn? And what had happened was they asked her about a phone call she had made where somebody claimed she was impersonating somebody else and pretending she was somebody else in order to get information. I'll tell you why she was doing that in a minute. So she got very nasty. Goes, well, that was 30 years ago. And I'm very confused now. And then I need to, okay, enough of that. And she walked off this. She left. She walked off out of the interview. Somebody caught her and she couldn't come up with a good answer. So she got really upset, really mad. Not in a way you would if you just, were, yeah, that's true. She's very good at avoiding the truth and gets very upset if you actually confront her with it. So I'm going to say she suffered from narcissistic personality disorder. and she was a massive stalker. Now, to get to the point why they became suspicious of her, let me just read you some of the things she had done in her life. Okay, she got her undergraduate degree in psychology, and then her classmates recalled she took dates with a guy named Paul Levin, a teaching assistant. And then she because he was Jewish, she converted to Judaism. However, when he broke off the relationship and became engaged to another woman, she took a relentless campaign to win him back. She called the couple and left long messages on their answering machine, annoyed their friends, deluged them with notes. One message was left on the windshield of his car. She claimed she was pregnant when she was not. All right. And then she actually claimed that, this woman you've hooked up with has no chance with me because I have a beautiful figure and a nice tan. Finally, the couple were forced to obtain a restraining order against their persecutor in Michigan court to ensure she wouldn't ruin their wedding. She's a stalker. She's obsessive, and she's a stalker. And if she doesn't get what she wants, she will get you. Next thing. After graduation, she moved on. Let's see. What's the next thing she did? Oh, yeah. Now she is, she had more romantic fixations. She hired a private detective, Vincent Parco, to trail a married New Jersey bartender, whose affection for her had slackened. So in other words, as long as he was into her, she was good. Like, oh, I'm getting all the attention. As soon as that guy said, I'm not as interested anymore, she hires a private detective, which is a pretty major step to take. Okay, because first of all, the guy's married already. You shouldn't have been messing with him. Secondly, he's dumping you. So that's your response, is to hire a private detective. And what did that do? They devised the idea of superimposing photographs of Warmus in sexy poses upon the pictures of the bartender with the intention of mailing them to his wife. She wanted to break them up. And Parco, by the way, you're going to hear about him more because he's the one that eventually supposedly sold her the gun. He's a sleazebag, okay? So, so he's a sleazy dude. Anyway, so now we have the second absolute proof that she's a stalker and an obsessive person. Now, she also was into fraud and forgery. She successfully, and this is also important for the issue of where she later on, when she was connected to getting ammunition for the gun. She successfully carried off her first swindle after graduation. She was working as a waitress, and she was accused of running credit cards through an imprinting machine 2 or 3 times, using one imprint for that, and then getting the other money. Let's see, she collected the cash, she pocketed the cash. They never got enough evidence against her. Several years later, she again had a recourse to forgery, this time to establish an alibi as a defense to a damage claim. In 1987, a woman identifying herself as Carolyn Warmus was involved in an automobile accident. Then she wrote to, let's see, what did she do? She wrote to the other driver stating she had been chaperoning a school trip in Washington on the day of the accident and offering as proof a letter signed by the school official, which of course was forged and he never wrote it. So are you beginning to see what kind of person she is? Okay. Let's see. Then she hooks up with Paul. Okay. So now she's with Paul. One of the other things that really brought her to the police's attention was after the wife was murdered, they separated for that period of time. And basically he's telling her, we can't hang out together because it looks bad, right? Well, he got a new girlfriend. And the new girlfriend, and he went off to Puerto Rico. And so now they're down in Puerto Rico, okay? And she appears in Puerto Rico and says, I'm at the hotel next door. Where are you? She starts leaving messages one after the other saying, where are you? Call me back, answer your phone. And he's like, what the heck? And so he freaks out and takes the new girlfriend and runs and just packs up and leaves. She claims he invited her down. Mm-hmm. So what? So he could frame her for the murder of his wife, supposedly. And she had the two things and that she did while she was there. One, the reason she found out where he was she had called the girlfriends. They're hooked up. I think it's teaching. Anyway, she called that somebody who I can't remember was a family member or with a friend, and she said, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for so and so," and she lied about who she was, and she was given that they were in Puerto Rico at this hotel. Then when she was there, she called the woman's family and said she was a police detective and that she wanted to let them know that their daughter was in Puerto Rico with the guy who probably killed his wife. So we're talking about a woman who is really questionable here. All right, so I just want to bring all that out. That's who she is. Okay, now, to be fair, I want to point out who Paul Solomon was. Paul Solomon was cheating on his wife. He was willing to bring his mistress to the house to sit at a table with his wife and have dinner. He was willing to have that mistress take his daughter off to a ski trip, just the two of them. So Paul got some issues too, okay? But if you're looking at the background, Paul's issues were cheating. He was cheating. He's kind of a Lothario, the older guy and the younger woman type of thing. She, on the other hand, had a massive history of obsession, stalking, lying, fraud, and vengeance. So I'm going to say she's scarier than the Paul guy is. All right. So now, and you asked this question. I knew somebody was going to ask this, and I'm blanking here. Did he have life insurance on his wife? I do believe he did, but I can't remember. I can't remember if it was very large. Hold on. I'm gonna Google, because that way I can give you a proper answer, because I blank on that. Let's see. Paul Solomon. Okay, hold on a second. Paul Solomon, insurance policy. Betty Jeanne. Let's see what it says. Okay. I did put that in. Oh, no, I put insurance police. Maybe that's why it's not coming up. Insurance police. All right, let's see. I swear I heard about it somewhere. Oh, yeah. She was, by the way, her father was a millionaire, multimillionaire. So she actually was a rich woman, a rich girl, She bought, one time after the murder, she bought like Tiffany earrings for the daughter. So she had bucks. I'm not seeing the issue about the insurance, and maybe that's why I don't know, because I don't see it here. Yeah. So anyway, I can't answer that. But clearly he was a good suspect because, first of all, it's his wife. He was the first person there, first person, she left. He was the last person to see her, first person to find her. If there was any insurance, obviously. He was in a relationship. If he gets rid of the wife, he can move her in and not have to deal with the wife anymore. Yeah, it's very, he was a good suspect. Then when they found her and they're like, holy crap, this woman is a stalker, crazy woman, then that became interesting. Now, so I want to point this out. There's 3 people who could be involved in this crime. One is one person. Either Paul Solomon killed his wife, and she's just, this woman claims she was framed. 2, that she killed his wife alone. 3, that Paul and Carolyn were in it together, but Carolyn did the actual killing. And then there's some people, there's a 4th one. Some people claim that the private investigator who sold her the gun actually was the one who killed her. He didn't actually give her the gun. She never had the gun. But the gun that was used was the private investigator's gun that Paul hired the private investigator to shoot her. So that is a hit. That would be hiring a hitman. Now, there is no evidence that Paul Solomon hired the creepy private investigator as a hitman. There is no proof of that. There's no money. First of all, in order to prove something like that, you have to have the guy actually making a contract, essentially. It could be a verbal contract with the hitman saying, I want you to kill my wife, and I'm going to pay you this much money to do it. And you have to have some kind of proof that actually occurred. And in this case, there's no proof that they even knew each other, that they had any communications, any phone calls, any meetings. It's not there. Could it have happened? But that's not where the evidence goes. Now, let me point out, this is a circumstantial case, 100%. Somebody came in, shot her, and did not leave any of their DNA there. And that doesn't matter whether it's Carolyn or somebody else. Nobody left DNA in there. So And that's possible because, generally speaking, if you're standing from a distance and shooting with a gun with a silencer on it, you're not that close to necessarily get back spatter on you. Now, hitting somebody on the head with it, you could get some blood on you. It's possible, but then again, you might not. Also, we don't know what the person was wearing. So there just was no proof that she specifically was in the apartment. There's no video. She has no alibi, but there's no video and there's no DNA. So, but somebody did kill Betty Jeanne. So now it comes out that there was a tip from this creepy Parko guy who she had already hired to do other creepy stuff, that guy, Parko, had sold her a gun for $2,500. Okay, so this is, and so they knew, so this was the gun that was used in the crime. It was this gun, okay? So here you can see, that's where you put that one extra bullet. So 8 in the magazine and 1 goes up there into the gun. So that's 9. All 9 of those were used. He said he sold it, and he said he sold her this with what is really called a suppressor. People call it silencer, but suppressor. And Parko claims that he decided to give her this suppressor because if she wanted to go practice in the woods, she wouldn't want to scare the neighbors. I have never heard people making that suggestion. I find that a lie because, generally speaking, when you sell somebody a gun like that, what you tell them is what? Go to the gun range. You go to a gun range, indoor, outdoor, whatever. You stand at the gun range and you shoot the gun. You put your ear things on and you shoot the gun. You practice over and over and over again at a gun range. You don't practice with a silencer. What the heck? I don't buy that for a minute. I find that complete bull. So and he, of course, he knows if you're going to sell some crazy woman, and he already knew she was crazy, right? And she was obsessive. You're going to sell a woman a gun with a suppressor on it. You kind of know what she might do with that gun, okay? And he's a sleazebag, and so eventually he got immunity to give the story because he's obviously he could be an accessory, right? But that's not what they got him for. So they gave him immunity, and they gave the husband immunity eventually. And I think Benny, you asked me about the immunity issues. I don't like the way immunity is tossed about. I think they do that because they want the person to talk, and they don't want the person to say, hey, I'm not going to take a chance because I don't want to get nailed with anything. So they just give them immunity. And once they do that, they're home free. Even if it turns out they're actually the ones who committed the crime, they're home free. So they got immunity. And so there was this gun that he claimed he sold to Carolyn. Carolyn says, I never bought a gun like that. I never touched a gun. Now, there is absolutely zero evidence that she bought the gun from Parko. There's no evidence. There's no paper trail. It was supposedly a cash transaction. The gun was never found. She supposedly threw it out a window on the parkway, and the gun was never located. So no, she is not physically connected to the gun that was used to kill. Now, Parko, supposedly they went and they tested out ammunition and stuff, and it turned, they believe it was exactly that gun because of other things that they had where they do the testing back at Parko's place. But anyway, or his buddy, it gets a little confusing. So they claim that Parko did have the gun, and the gun went to somebody. Parko didn't kill her. So Betty Jeanne. So the gun went to somebody who used the gun. In my opinion, it wasn't a person who was very good with using a gun. So I don't personally think it's Paul, and I don't think it's Parko. I think the most likely one is actually Carolyn. But there's no physical evidence linking her to that gun. So now you say, this is a freaking circumstantial case. First of all, she wasn't seen at the house. She wasn't seen with the gun outside of Parko's testimony. And he's questionable dude. So there's no proof she had the gun in her little hand. So how the heck could this case end up convicting her? And here is where the piece of circumstantial evidence is so strong that yes, sometimes it does work that way. So what happened was let me see if I have a better copy of that. Here we go. Okay, so from the MCI, they found out that a call had been placed from her phone at 3:02 p.m. to Plainfield, New Jersey, to a gun shop. A gun shop. And then a woman came into that gun shop and bought ammunition for the exact type of gun that was used to kill Betty Jeanne. And you say, well, don't they require IDs? Well, they did. So they asked for her ID. She gave them an ID. It was not her. The ID was not her. It was another woman. But it turned out that that woman, the ID was given to the gun shop. That woman said her ID had been stolen. And apparently she worked right next to her. So what a quinky dink, you know, that her ID goes missing and turns up in a gun shop. And the person that's connected to both the stealing of the ID and the phone call made at 3:00 in the afternoon to that gun shop is Carolyn. So Warmus, it's Carolyn Warmus on both sides. So they're like, well, this is the smoking gun, you know, because obviously she made a phone call to the gun shop. She went to the gun shop. She used the ID she'd stolen from a coworker and got the ammunition. And then 4 hours later, the ammunition is used in that exact gun it's needed for, and her rival is shot down. And what looks like a very, you know, a crime that somebody not very good with a gun committed. Okay, so now when they get to the trial, after they find out that this thing exists, that there's this phone bill that proves that, this is just astonishing, actually. So then the defense comes up with another bill. And they say, oh no, this is the real bill that she had. And in that bill, that the phone call to New Jersey, to the gun shop, is missing. It's just not there. And oddly enough, another phone call appears at the time that the murder was happening, so that consequently she couldn't have committed the murder. And then, so they, I mean, really? So then they examine these. They get the MCI people in to examine which one is the real one. And the first thing they say is the paper doesn't match. The print doesn't match. And then they point out, and I don't know how you can do such a shabby job of this, but you see on the left-hand side, it says communications. There's a whole line at the bottom. I can't even see it because it's too small. But they have it's their logo. You know, their I don't know what you call those things. Their byline. You see on the right one, the byline's missing. So whoever put this crap together forgot to put that. And they said that's on all of their communications. It's always there. MCI on the left and the byline on the right. And it's missing off at what looks like to be a piece of fraud. So wrong paper, wrong ink, and a missing thing that should be at the bottom there. And oddly enough, the phone call to New Jersey is missing. But hey, let's say she didn't even make the phone call. It's phenomenal that this woman who doesn't have a gun suddenly showed up in that New Jersey gun shop to buy this, right? And yet she was her co-worker and had stolen her stuff. So, yeah. So this was the thing that linked everything together. I would say if that phone call wasn't there, the visit to the gun shop to get the ammunition hadn't happened, I would say there's not enough evidence. I would have had reasonable doubt and I wouldn't have convicted her. I would say she's a psycho. I would say she had motive. She's a stalker, obsessive. She didn't have an alibi. Somebody said they sold her that gun, even though there's no proof of it. All that, but there's absolutely no proof that she actually had anything to do. We don't have any proof outside of Parco that she had the gun. But once you put the phone call in there that she's making to the gun store, shows up there with a phony ID from her workmate, then that means she's buying ammunition for the gun she supposedly, somebody does say she has, and now there's evidence that she bought ammunition for it. That is what locked it in for me. I find her guilty, but only because of that phone call. I really think that was it. Now, one other thing I want to point out is the question of, could Paul Solomon have been involved as well? Okay. That's an interesting possibility, because this is what can happen. Let's say he hooks up with his new honey. They're having a hot time. he's infatuated with her. She's into him, but he's infatuated with her as well. His relationship with his wife is not going well. She's sleeping around. He's sleeping around. Their marriage is on the rocks, but she may be one of those that's not going to give the marriage up. And she's just kind of like, he's tired of dealing with her. And so she says, well, if your wife weren't in the picture, well, I can't divorce her. Well, maybe I could help you out, Yeah, you might be able to, if she were just not in the picture at all, I could collect, the insurance, we could marry, and, it could all work out. But I could never shoot my wife. And besides which, they'd look at me, number one. And she goes, oh, I could do it. And he goes, well, how would you get hold of a gun? Well, I know this PI that I worked with before, he'd get me one. He's a sleazebag. And he goes, really? You could get a gun from him? Yeah, I could. Well, if you can do that, my daughter's going on a ski trip. And this is interesting because the daughter was out of town on a ski trip, which is a perfect time if a guy's going to kill his wife to do it because his daughter wouldn't be in the home. Also a perfect time for her to kill her lover's wife because she also knows the daughter's not in the home. I believe both of them knew that, it's not like she didn't know the daughter was out of town. So, and together it would work as well. Though the daughter's out of town, why don't you come by? Here's what I'll do, honey. You get the gun. Okay. You get the gun, get a silencer. Because I always wondered why she got a silencer, because that is an odd thing even to think of. A lot of people don't even think of that. But, somebody's really, hey, they know their neighborhood and stuff. And, hey, tell them to get you a silencer. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell my wife my battery doesn't work. I'll hook the thing up so she can't leave the house. I'll take her car and go over to the bowling alley, and then I'll meet you later. And when you come to my house, you'll see that my car's in there that's hooked up. You'll see I'm gone. That's your signal to go on in the house and take care of her. I might even mention that you might come over, and so she won't even be worried about you. And then once you do that, just get out of there quickly, get in your car. And after I leave the bowling alley, we know they met at the hotel, but we don't know if they met before the hotel. We can help you get rid of the gun and whatever evidence we need to get rid of. Then we'll go meet at the hotel so we can be seen in public together. And then we'll, is Paul Solomon possibly involved with what happened to his wife? I don't know. I can't say he is or he isn't. And she's not going to say he is, because if she says he is, now she says he killed his wife. Her whole story now is that she was just set up. The whole thing in Puerto Rico was a setup to make her look crazy. The Parco was a liar. He was paid to lie. She got her daddy to say that Parco tried to blackmail him. So she's claiming that Paul Solomon killed his wife and she had nothing to do with it. But she certainly, if she did commit the crime, isn't going to say, well, he and I committed the crime together, because then she's guilty, because she'll be the one that pulled the trigger. And Paul, he would not be hiring a hit person. He's not paying any money to tell somebody to kill. So he could just say, I never told her to do something horrible like that. No, my God, I would never do that. And it would be her word against his. So could he have encouraged her and even knew how it was all going to go down? Possibly. Maybe that's why he did what he did. The car thing with this possible signal. Go to the bowling alley. Well, as soon as I do that, I'm going to the bowling alley. That's when you come in, so I have an alibi, and then we'll meet after that, and we'll take care of everything, and we'll get away with it. And then eventually, she was the one got nailed for this whole thing, and she just proclaims her innocence, and he proclaims his innocence, and so I can't say he is totally innocent in this case. I don't know. But there's definitely no proof to link him to it. He could have just been the husband who had himself a dangerous mistress, and she took it too far and killed his wife. He could be totally innocent of everything that happened. I can't prove that he was totally innocent, and I can't prove that he was, and I can't prove that he is innocent. So, because I don't know what went on between the two of them in their little private talks. So I have no idea. All I can say is all the evidence points to her being the person who committed the actual homicide. And she got convicted. She should have been convicted, but it was all circumstantial. And that's a very tricky case, but it was the call to the gun shop that was her undoing. And so that sometimes a circumstantial case can be good enough, but you have to have that really strong link to say there's no other explanation. All right, let me look at some of your comments now. If you own a silencer, it's a federal crime. Is that true? I mean, I don't know. I never owned a silencer. Really? Interesting. And Kurt says silencers are illegal in most states. Well, the creepy PI, he wasn't forthcoming with this information. He got forced into giving the information, and that's why he didn't want to, because he was breaking the law, and probably in more ways than one. Pat, I don't think Paul was in on it, Carolyn, because he was obviously doing okay with his affairs, even as the wife probably knew about the affairs. Why suddenly have her killed because of a random new one? Yeah, I mean, I don't object to that concept. He seemed more like a, yeah, I don't, unless he was extremely infatuated with Carolyn and didn't want to wait out the 4 years to the girl leaving home and having to go through the divorce and all that stuff. And therefore his wife just, and there are men who do this overnight. They think, well, if their wife was just out of the picture, I wouldn't have to deal with this crap. He could have thought that. He could. All I'm pointing out is there's no evidence that completely takes that away, that possibility. But I tend to agree with you, Benny. I do. I tend to agree with you. I think he just took advantage of whom he could take advantage of. I think he had his little flings, and I think he probably just picked the wrong fling, and it went way over his head with someone he did not know was going to become, Fatal Attraction. It really was a good title for this thing as well. So I agree with you. I personally am not a strong believer that he hooked up with her with the concept of killing his wife. But because people pointed out the issues of how it went down, I just can't take away that it could be true. But there's no proof that it is true. And I agree with you. I think that, generally speaking, I don't think he had to go that. I don't think he needed to do all that. Now, supposedly he didn't know his wife was having an affair at the time. So, and he found out later that she was. But their marriage wasn't going well. But I personally tend to I would agree with you, Benny. I tend to lean that way too. I think probably not. But I have to point out that theoretically, it's possible. But that's the way it is. Well, Kurt, you know how I have this issue with defense lawyers and prosecution? That anytime, in my opinion, if you present anything in court which is fraudulent, you should not only be disbarred, you should be in prison. That's because you then committed fraud. I don't know how so much of this crap goes on in courts. I mean, courts are some of the sleaziest places I've ever seen, with defense lawyers making up garbage stories and accusing people of things they know aren't true and presenting evidence which is not evidence. I don't know how this happens. And the prosecution too. I think anybody who defrauds the court should be in prison. That should be the end of that. In the UK, we refer to that as being caught bang to rights, which would be perfect for this case. Where did this take place? Oh, did I not tell you where this took place? Hold on a second. This occurred in, okay, wait a minute. Westchester County, New York. Yeah. So Westchester County. And, it is just, okay. Let me go back and look. What about the Jersey sports car store where supposedly Carolyn used a stolen driver's license to buy the gun and silencer? No. So she didn't buy the gun and silencer there. She only bought the ammunition. Now, it's stated by Parco. I hope I got that guy's name right. Hold on a second. I've been saying Parco the whole time. I hope I'm correct. Okay. Let's see what here. Okay. Investigators gained information that Warmus had obtained a .25 caliber Beretta pistol with a silencer shortly before her murder. And then he discovered that on 3:02 p.m. On the day of the murder, she called Ray's Sports Shop in North Plainfield, New Jersey, and a female purchased .25 caliber ammunition. Okay, and that was done with a phony driver's license. What was the thing on Parco? Hmm, hmm, hmm. Why is it not in here? Hold on a second. Huh. Interesting. For some reason, his name isn't even in Wikipedia. How can that possibly be true? Um, I think his name was Parco. Please be Parco. I've been saying this through the whole thing, so I'm going to be really embarrassed if it's not. Okay, Parco. Oh, thank God it was. Vincent Parco. I finally found it. Vincent Parco sold the defendant the gun and the silencer. He also claimed that he sold her like 12 bullets as well. And I guess the idea is then during those 10 days, she's supposed to go out and practice. Well, maybe she did actually practice, and then she ran out of bullets, so she had to call Ray's and go and get some more ammunition. But again, we don't even know that he gave her the ammunition. So Parco is such a slime ball lying dog that it's hard to know where the truth is with that guy. So you can't believe everything that guy says. Let's see what else you have to say here. Kurt says, I have to tell you about Drew Peterson's former defense attorney sometime. I would be interested in that. Do people really think they'll get away with murder? Well, yeah. I mean, especially the premeditated types, which clearly they think if I'm just not seen, I can do this and I won't get caught. Well, if really, honest to God, if she had made that dumb phone call, she might not have been caught. She might have been suspected, but not caught. But even then, I think she would have thought she'd go in there. She'll just slip into the house. Bam, 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 bam. It's got a silencer. It's quiet. People aren't going to hear the shots. And then she'll just slip out, disappear. And back in those days, there wasn't as much video. Nowadays, with so much video cameras, it might be easier to at least track her vehicle. They might look at all the different houses on the block and they see her car. That would be useful. But back in those days, the video wasn't there. So now I think people have to be a little more concerned about CCTV, all kinds of surveillance that can catch them, video surveillance. So it's trickier today with the videos. And that's one of the best tools we have today of catching anybody. Let's see, Joe says, are lawyers who are proven to have lied actually immune from prosecution themselves? I've always found this astonishing. Surely there must be some sort of safeguarding in place. I'm going to look that up, but I don't see it. I mean, I don't see it. I see prosecution defense allowed to lie through their teeth about things, and it's considered giving the person a good defense. And the experts are allowed to lie, because when you have a prosecution expert saying this and the defense expert saying that, somebody's a liar. Unless you just have an unusual case where it's the evidence is a little bit murky, so you can lean this way, you can lean that way. Most of the time, somebody's just lying like a dog because somebody paid them $50,000 to do so, and that should be a crime, but it isn't. It's craziness. Doreen says, it took me a while to think of it, but in the U.S. we say dead to rights for caught, but I never heard bang to rights. I kind of like the bang to rights. But it was a tricky case. This was not an easy case. That's why the first trial was a hung jury, and then they went to the second one. And the second one, I think I'm trying to remember. Was the second one the one they introduced the glove, which I think really it was again interesting, but I don't think the proof is solid on that. So that didn't do a lot for me. To me, it was just absolutely the call to the gun shop. And unless you believe that the prosecution fabricated a call to a gun shop. Now, here's the thing about her, being framed. She is, in order for her to be framed, she had to get her so Paul Solomon had to be in on it. Vincent Parco, the PI, had to be in on it. The gun shop owner had to be in on it, sold the ammunition. The workmate who said her thing had been stolen while she was nearby, she had to be in on it. So you got a lot of people, and the prosecution also had to be in on it, in the fact that they were going to manufacture a telephone bill to have a fake call inserted to the gun store. And then they'd have to get the gun store guy to agree that that phone call even happened. And then you'd have to fabricate that the woman came in to buy the ammunition who wasn't acting. You know, that's a lot of people involved in trying to frame her. And that's nonsense. That's way too much. It's just, and then when she got mad about the issue, when in the newer version, when she got all mad and walked off, because you're just trying to confuse me. You're confusing. It's 30 years ago. I don't remember saying to that woman who went to Puerto Rico with Paul, I don't remember calling her family and saying these things. But that happened because, so those people are framing her too. So and a friend and the family, because she had made 2 phone calls. So the friend and the family were also framing her for no reason whatsoever. So everybody, that's right. Poor thing, everybody was out against her. Yeah, everybody's out to get her. Exactly. Too many people involved in a framing. Yeah, and too many disparate people who shouldn't have. I could see maybe Paul and Parco, but not the gun shop owner and the family and friends of the other woman. And just nonsense. Pat, why do you think that the judge allowed for the glove in the second trial when there was no chain of custody? Yeah, I do not understand. I mean, personally, I think it's nonsense and they should never have allowed it. I mean, yeah. Now, I heard 2 different stories about this, and I don't understand what the real story is. The first story I heard was that the glove, the police did have the glove and had tested it and came up with nothing. They essentially gave it back to Paul, and then he put it away someplace and then found it again. And the other story is that they never got hold of the glove. They never even had it in their possession. They made an error at the crime scene and didn't collect it. And then it was just picked up and put away. And Paul found it later in a box on the shelf. The second one makes more sense to me, in the sense that if there were items laying all over the place and looked like something had just fallen there, and somebody who was in there didn't connect it to the crime scene, because why? As I said, I found this in my hallway today in June, and I don't know where the other one is, by the way. It's just one. Where's the other one? Anyway, don't know why it was there. And funny, the reason I was able to find it was because I had this vague memory of seeing it. So I must have been like putting stuff away in that area and had seen the glove and thought I should do something about it, but I didn't. So if she was not the neatest person, and they said she wasn't neat, she was pretty slobby, and she was folding clothes and stuff. So there was clothes out there. They may have just assumed something fell, and then just after they left the crime scene, then Paul just picked everything up and put it in a box. By the way, one reason that some people have suspected him, and she points it out, is that 2 weeks after the murder happened, he moved back into the house with his daughter. And that is, I admit, that sends up a little bit of a red flag to me. It makes me wonder what kind of guy he is. It's like, your wife was just murdered. Why would you bring your teenage daughter back in where she can see the spot that her mother was murdered at? That seems a little creepy to me, a little cold-hearted. So, there's reasons people have some suspicions about Paul, and there you go. That's why, there's reasons people have suspicions. It can make a person of interest, which he was. The question is, was he actually involved in any way, or was he just smitten by a very, very narcissistic stalker lady, who was hot? She was, she don't look so great here, but she's in her 50s. But actually, when she smiles, she's very attractive in her 50s. And, later on when she gets the brain tumor, you can see things happen to her. But she was a very attractive young woman, and she had her way. And she knew how to get men to look at her and to say things and get them excited. And she was very sexual. And men like very sexual women, as far as maybe not to marry, but they like, as far as being the girlfriend home to mommy. But they certainly like a hot babe that's willing to do all kinds of things to them. And so, if he's not having a great relationship with his wife, he's out catting around town, and he's got, these different women that he enjoys. And she was, particularly good at what she did. And so that he might have overlooked and been willing to overlook her massive amount of little notes she sent and the presents and the fact that she was too obsessed, and he should have broken it off way earlier. But, guess he was having fun. That's all it is sometimes. Let's see. Kurt says, no chain of custody is crazy. I'm working a copyright case with counterfeit toys, and I need to have a chain of custody with them. Almost always, you need that absolute chain of custody, because anything, once you break that chain of custody, it's really worthless. The evidence becomes worthless because you don't know where that, who touched it, who could have contaminated it. You just don't know. So I don't understand that whole thing. Claudia says all court proceedings are public records, so they can go back and refresh people's memories. Hold on a second. I'm not sure what memories are supposed to refresh. I'm not sure. I'm looking to try to figure out what that comment was. I don't know. But yeah, theoretically, by the way, when you say all court proceedings are public record, you'd be surprised. I have a case that I have been trying to get the information on for 30 years. And, I'm sorry, the case is 30 years old, but I tried to get the information on the case because it went to court. And the guy took an Alford plea in court. And there was DNA issues in the case, and I wanted to see the DNA reports. And I went to the court to get that information, and they said that had been sent back to the police department and was unavailable. That was fascinating. I never heard such a thing, and I can't get a hold of it. So, and I'm going to eventually work on a FOIA request on that, but I've often not been able to get FOIA requests either. So you never know. They can seal records, but it is not usual. That is true. So, everything is not as sometimes as clear as you wish it could be. And sometimes you can't, some court records are like right on the internet and you can see everything. I looked up this. I don't know, maybe I didn't do proper Googling, but I couldn't come up with the autopsy report. I couldn't come up with the crime scene. I really wanted to look at the crime scene autopsy report. All I could come up with, the picture you saw was just taken from the show was going by, and I'm like clicking pictures, because you can't do screenshots when on Prime Video. You can do screenshots on YouTube, by the way, but you can't do screenshots on Netflix or Prime Video. So I have to use a camera and take pictures. My phone camera, and take a picture. That's what you're seeing. But I'm looking. Where's the I want to see things, and I wanted more depth on this, and I could not get that information. So Kurt says, I've tried getting old court records. It is amazing how many pages go missing now that it's all digitized. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's not a perfect world, and the system isn't perfect, and there's a lot of shenanigans that do go on, and there's a lot of carelessness that sometimes happens. And especially when the things get really old, I mean, things, stuff just happens. But sometimes, like in the case that I put in the $900 FOIA request for the information, I was robbed, and they gave me pretty much zero of what I asked for, but they kept the $900. I can't access the records because I don't want the records accessed. So there's a bit of corruption going on down there in South Carolina. That's all I can say. But doing these shows, I can only, obviously I'm not going to do hundreds of hours of research by going to courthouses and so on and so forth. So I do depend on Google, what I can find, in any way I can find it. And sometimes I get pretty lucky, and there's a lot of information, especially I put in appeal. A lot of times I put in the appeals because the appeals often show up on more so than any of the original court case or anything. I put in appeals here, and there's a couple things like People versus Carolyn Warmus. I found that one, but it's very short, and it just basically talks about, what is this one? It was an appeal convicting her murder, order that the judgment is affirmed, and talks about Parco, talks about Puerto Rico, and that's it. And oh yeah, this is the one I wanted to get a PDF of the case, but they wanted like 40 bucks. So I don't make that much money off this show. I won't pay $40. So I didn't. So anyway, Kurt says, if you do a Chicago-based case and need records, let me know. I'll keep that in mind. All right. Hold on a second. Just want to say, again, this show is for purposes of education. I'm not working on the cases, so it's not like, I have to get to the nitty gritty of most of the cases I'm talking about. I have my own cases, which, yes, those cases are the ones I'm putting the extra effort out on. But for the YouTube cases, I'm trying to teach from them, not so much solve. So I'm a little cheaper on my time and my money. Joe says, I'm intrigued to know what happened to the woman who stole your garden. Was she ever jailed or at least sanctioned? I've never heard of anyone stealing a garden before. No, and there was nothing I could do. Really, because I didn't have a photo of the garden when it existed. So I couldn't prove that the garden had been taken. Just that it was missing. And I also didn't have video camera, so I couldn't prove she took the garden. I just knew she took the garden. And she was a horrible person, did a lot of terrible things. And as far as just, making claims against me that weren't true, and they were investigated and found to be untrue. But that kind of person oftentimes will go through life and they will screw one person over after the other. Vengeance, 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 vengeance. Sometimes they'll go too far. And that time, I think she went too far. She decided, I think the end of this whole thing is just this. She tried to get those other men and it didn't work. And this time she thought she could get this guy, but that wife was just in her way. And she removed her. And had she not made that phone call, she might have not been prosecuted for it. Also, she was a little annoyed that after she did this good thing, he dumped her anyway, because he was like really not wanting to be around her. And I think that really ticked her off too, because when he went to Puerto Rico, if she had done all this, she wanted it to be done so she could have him. And now he's in Puerto Rico with another woman. I'm going to say she was a little upset. Did you save your pig, Pat? Actually, the funny thing about this is there's actually a page on the internet and on my, I don't think I've moved them over to this channel, but I have lots of videos of my pig. And there was a Save Pat Brown's pet pig, Gwendolyn. That's a Facebook page. What happened was my pig was 20 years old, and the county then said I had to move my pig. And so the people came out from the news, and I'm like, they told me I can't move the pig because if I do, she'll die in the new circumstances because she can't adjust. This is her home for 20 years. So, and all the neighbors were all pro. They went around to the neighbors, and the neighbors were, we love Gwendolyn, we love her. And children actually made an I love Gwenny thing and hung it across my yard. And the National Enquirer actually ran a campaign for me, and they in their paper they had Save Gwendolyn, and I ended up with a box full of people all put this lovely notes of Save Gwendolyn. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of them. They were like a coupons of saving Gwendolyn. And the Washington Post came out and took one of the prettiest pictures of me hugging the pig. It's a 300-pound pig, so it was really cute. And then right before we got to the trial part where I was going to fight for her, she died of natural causes because she was pretty old by then, and it was amazing she made it that long. But she died of natural causes before I went to the court system. So the funny thing was that my evil renter was trying to hurt me, and I ended up with the most wonderful going away party for my pig I could have ever had, because I have beautiful photos, I have beautiful videos. I never would have had that woman not ratted me out for my pig. So thank you, evil renter. You can have the garden. I got the going away party for the pig. So that's all good. Oh my gosh. How common do you think such people are? It might be true that most psychopaths are not killers, but I see a lot of people who fit that profile, and people in politics and corporate world. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Most of them are not killers. They are they have a massive narcissism, and then they have this all the way to the end of psychopathy. They're mostly not violent. They're just mostly ruin your life and ruin other people's lives and take advantage of people. And so, yeah, there are a lot of those out there. Now, wait a minute. Pat, I'm just glad your former crazy renter left Jitterbug alone. Otherwise, I would be upset beyond recognition. Well, Jitterbug is not my donkey. I live next door to my daughter. She has the donkey named Jitterbug. Yes, she has the llamas and the alpacas and the horse. And now we have a new goat. We have a goat. He's very cute. And Jitterbug the donkey and the chickens. So I'm trying to wind down on pets, but she's taken over my craziness. So yes, I did. I had wonderful neighbors. Every one of them loved the pig. And the pig was always out in the yard. And the backyard was fenced. So she would go out, cry. She never went to the bathroom in the house ever. She would make her noise, oinking, and I would let her out the door, and she would go out to pee. And if it started to rain, she oinked to come back in because she didn't like to be rained on. But she would wander around the backyard, but she would also wander around the front yard. So, and she never left the yard. So she would be out there like walking around or sleeping, and I hear cars go, people stopping to look over. Is that a pig? And everybody loved her because she never harmed anybody. She wasn't loud, and they just thought she was adorable. So all my neighbors were great. Just the renter that sucked, This is true. Lisa Ann says, I note that the renter left Ziggy alone, not touching that cat. She did not like Ziggy. She loved, remember, when I moved from that house, I brought Ziggy and Rooksy. Rooksy was a cat she loved because Rooksy was the sweetest, most adorable cat in the world. And that's the one that vanished from this house, leaving me with Ziggy. But no, she didn't like Ziggy. She never messed with Ziggy. She only liked Rooksy. Oh, your cousin has a pig. Oh, yes, it is a great pet. I mean, she was a wonderful pet. Although when I got her, I thought she was going to be one of those little teeny pot bellies. They told you you're going to stay small, and mine turned out to be 300 pounds. And so people come into my house, and also this pig would walk into the room, and they go. It was quite amusing. Quite amusing. I liked it. Carolina says, I never understand why some women want a man who cheats on his wife. Does she really think he'll be faithful to her? Leopards don't change their spots. Well, that's always amusing. It's like the secretary who has an affair with her boss, and then, he gets divorced. She marries him, and then he has an affair with the next secretary. Yeah, moron. Yeah, that's true. But there's this kind of beliefs that they are that special. They're so much more wonderful. And this guy has been stuck with the wrong woman. And if he only had such a great woman like me, then he'd be happy, you see. I'm so fantastic. He'd never look around again. We'll go off into the sunset. It's delusional, but that's narcissism. So, that's narcissism. So, but that will make you unrealistic and just make decisions that are not smart decisions. Also think about this. The way to somebody's heart isn't to harass them. That doesn't work real well either. So it's like they say, if a man marries his mistress, it creates a vacancy. I like that one. That's very cool. That's funny. Yeah. Oh, that's a good there. Wait a minute, I have to go back up here. That's a good comment. Kurt says, hell, they had pay phones back then. Every idiot knows don't use your home phone. Well, she's an idiot. She called other people. She did a lot of idiotic things. And a lot of that, again, is an ego that is grandiose, that doesn't look for what's going to be the most likely outcome of this thing. And the other thing that happens for people is that it's like Google searches. They're like, why did you have a Google search like how to kill somebody on your laptop, your iPad? Why would you do that? You had 50 searches on how to kill somebody, and why? Well, it's because at the time you're doing the searching, you haven't actually finalized the concept of killing. You're thinking about it. So while you're thinking about it, you do this. Then when you go to do it, you forget that you left all that information on there when you were just thinking about it. So, but that does show everybody your ideation and that it might come true one day, but people forget. They really do. So people aren't all that smart. They do a lot of stupid stuff, They really do. Thank God, because then you can at least catch them, See if any other. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this fatal attraction case. And I do think I want to just say this in defense of Paul, who did cheat on his wife and lied to her. So I'm not fond of people who do that. But I will say, from listening to her and the way she uses her voice and the way she moves her eyes, she is very alluring. I can see where a guy, especially when she was younger, would fall for her. Totally see it. And actually, if you watch I thought the one with the move made for TV movie, the one with Madsen in it. Let me see, which one is this one? The one with Virginia Madsen. Which one is this one? There's a bunch of movies. I think it's this one. Yes, A Murderous Affair. Very attractive, and the way she talks and so sexual. I get it. I can see why she could lure somebody. I really can. So it's not like you're like, why would you think of going with her? I understand it, especially when she's practiced. You have to understand this. Just like my renter. My renter spends her entire life practicing how to manipulate people. And so they do create this wonderful voice and this innocent look and all this stuff, so that even somebody who's a seasoned profiler, when you first listen to them, you go, seem like a really nice person. You seem very sweet. And when people come to rent at my house, I wouldn't have that much time to figure out, a lot of times whether I wanted them in my house or not. I can't do it. It was very hard to do any kind of background checks, especially back in those days. So you really couldn't do one. And even if you tried to call people and say, what kind of person were they when they were living with you, that might be difficult. So a lot of times I had to try to figure out from their behaviors and the answers to my questions whether they would be a person I'd want in my house. And she was very good at having all the right answers. And, generally speaking, she wasn't unpleasant to have around until she didn't get her way. And then all hell broke loose. So, they're practiced. Manipulators practice. And she had already practiced on man after man after man before she got near Paul. So she knew it. She knew how to do it. And he fell for it. He fell for it pretty hard, I would say. Pretty hard, because I said she was not an unattractive woman, and we know how you guys think. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. And it's really, I remembered this case, but I, hadn't thought about it in years, but now she's free and she's trying to prove that she's innocent. And I'll be curious to see whether we're going to see her get exonerated at some point, whether it's, because here's the thing that happens. If you try a case often enough, eventually you can get a different result. It doesn't make that different result correct. It just means you can finally get a different result. So let's say, got something goes and gets a hung jury. And then next time it goes and then it gets conviction or not conviction. Which one's right? Or the person gets convicted, then they get let out on a technicality via the Innocence Project or whatever. It goes back to trial, and the next time they don't get convicted. And people say, oh, see, justice has finally been done. Maybe not. Maybe the original was actually the correct one, and the new jury, those civilian juries I don't approve of, the next jury goes, oh, I don't know. I don't think that was really good. Circumstantial evidence shouldn't be good enough. So I don't think she did it. And so, yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised that we see a whole defense for her now, and she might finally be exonerated, and then everybody can feel bad. She didn't really do it. I wonder if the killer's gotten free, and I don't know how that'll go down in history, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down in history in a very unique way. So, but you wouldn't really think to be suspicious of a French professor. Really? Okay. I'm not sure why, but all right. Do you think people like Warmus ever change? No, they just changed their game. That's all they do. They change the game. Well, thank you, Benny, very much. I agree she was guilty. All right. Lisa says, I didn't know the case. That's a compelling show. Well, now you know the case. That's cool. Bye, Carrie, and bye, everybody. And I will be, what about, oh, it's Sunday. So we'll be having I think we have a hangout this week and maybe a phone in next week. I think that's my plan. So I look forward to seeing everybody there. This week will be Wednesday at 7:00. And next time it would be, I don't know. The call in will all depend on who's calling in. I might move that around for whomever. And so anyway, see you later.